The wedding hall smelled like white roses and expensive champagne. Sweet, sharp, heavy in the air. Crystal chandeliers hung softly above polished marble floors, scattering warm gold light across silk dresses and tailored suits. A string quartet played something delicate, slow, practiced, perfect. Every note floated upward and dissolved into laughter that didn't belong to me. I stood near the entrance, not fully inside, not fully outside, just close enough to see everything. My heels clicked once against the marble before I stopped moving. I wasn't sure where I was supposed to sit, or if I was supposed to sit at all. The seating chart stood near the door. Thick ivory paper, names written in careful black ink. My name wasn't there. I checked twice, then a third time, just in case the letters had shifted. They hadn't. Across the room, my younger sister glowed under the lights. Ivory satin wrapped around her like it had been made for her skin. People leaned toward her when she laughed. Cameras flashed, glasses lifted. My mother stood beside her, adjusting a stray curl with fingers that had never learned how to touch me gently. "Smile," she whispered to my sister. The word drifted across the room like perfume. I folded my hands in front of me. I had known this would happen. Still, knowing doesn't stop the sting. A waiter brushed past, nearly bumping my shoulder. "Excuse me," he murmured without looking. I nodded, though he wasn't speaking to me as a guest. More like I was in the way. I caught my reflection in one of the mirrored columns lining the wall. My dress was simple. Navy blue, no shimmer, no dramatic neckline. Just something safe. Something that wouldn't compete. I learned that young. Don't compete. Don't shine too brightly. Don't ask for more. The quartet shifted into a brighter melody. Applause rippled through the hall as the groom entered. Older, confident, silver threaded through his dark hair. A CEO, someone had whispered earlier. Powerful, established, twice her age. People said it like it was impressive. I watched him take her hand. Watched her tilt her head the way she used to when she wanted something. The same tilt that worked on teachers, on neighbors, on men, on our parents. My mother glanced toward the entrance. For a second, our eyes met. There was no surprise in hers. No apology, just calculation. A quiet confirmation of something I had always suspected. I wasn't here to celebrate. I was here to witness. And as the doors slowly closed behind me, sealing the warmth and music inside, I felt it settle in my chest, the familiar truth. This wasn't the first time I had been left standing at the edge of my own family. And tonight, it wouldn't be the last. The first memory I have of my mother's hands is not softness. It's pressure, her fingers tightening around my wrist as she pulled me through a crowded market, her nails digging in just enough to remind me to keep up. The air smelled like dust and frying oil. People brushed past us, loud and fast, and I learned early that if I didn't move with her pace, I'd be dragged. My sister, small, bright, and laughing, sat on my father's shoulders like she belonged there. She always did. "Look at her," strangers would say. "Mashallah, what a beautiful child." My mother would beam as if she'd been handed a trophy. I would walk beside them with my arms still aching, my fingers curled tightly around a plastic bag, trying to be useful, trying to be noticed, trying not to be a problem. No one ever said, "Look at her too." Not once. When we were children, our house had two kinds of silence. The first was a peaceful kind. Early mornings when the sunlight crept in thin lines across the floor and the world outside hadn't woken up yet. That silence felt like possibility. The second kind was punishment. That one lived in the walls. It came after I asked for things. After I said I was tired. After I cried. If I fell and scraped my knee, my mother would sigh like it was an inconvenience. If my sister fell, my mother would gasp, scoop her up, kiss her forehead, and demand to know who was responsible, even if it was just gravity. My father was a quieter kind of absent. He was home, but he wasn't present. His voice was always somewhere behind a newspaper, behind a phone call, behind work. He didn't hit. He didn't shout. He just looked through me. Sometimes I'd sit near him, holding a school notebook open to a page I was proud of, a perfect score, a teacher's red pen circling my name. He would glance down, nod once, and remember something else. But when my sister brought home a drawing, stick figures and crooked hearts, he'd laugh like it was art worthy of a gallery. "She's special," he'd say, and I would swallow that sentence like a stone. As we grew, the imbalance didn't soften. It sharpened. When my sister wanted piano lessons, we found the money. When I wanted a new pair of shoes because mine were splitting at the sides, my mother said, "You can wear them a little longer." When my sister cried over a boy, my mother brought her tea and sat on her bed for hours. When I cried over anything, my mother would tilt her head and ask, "What is wrong with you?" By the time I became an adult, I stopped expecting tenderness. I learned to keep my voice even, my face neutral, my needs small. But deep inside, there was still a part of me that hoped, quietly, foolishly, that one day my family would look at me and see someone worth holding close. The wedding invitation had arrived 3 months ago. Cream envelope, gold lettering, my sister's name first, mine printed below it like an afterthought. And the moment I read it, I felt that old familiar silence return, not the peaceful one, the punishment one. By the time I reached the reception hall, the ceremony was already over. The doors were wide open and warm air spilled out, thick with perfume, champagne, and something buttery from the kitchen. Applause echoed in soft waves. People were already celebrating. I paused at the threshold. The inside was glowing. Round tables dressed in white linen filled the room. Tall centerpieces of lilies and orchids stretched toward the chandeliers. Every chair had a silk ribbon tied neatly at the back. Everything looked intentional, thought out, controlled. Except me. I walked toward the seating chart again. Just to be certain, my eyes traced the tables. Table 1, immediate family. Table 2, close friends. Table 3, business partners. Table 4, extended family. My name wasn't under any of them. My chest tightened, not dramatically, not loudly, just enough to remind me I was still capable of feeling something. A staff member in a black suit approached. "Are you looking for your table?" His smile was polite. Professional. I nodded. He scanned the list with a finger, slower than necessary. Then he hesitated. "Oh," he said quietly. "You've been placed in the hallway overflow seating." The hallway? For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. "The reception is very full," he added gently. "But there's a live screen there." A live screen. I swallowed. "Of course," I said, because I had been trained to say that. He led me away from the music, away from the laughter, past the double doors and into a narrower corridor lined with framed artwork. The lighting here was dimmer, cooler, the air less alive. 3 small round tables were set against the wall. Folding chairs. No centerpieces. No silk ribbons. A television mounted above. I level played the celebration inside. Muted. I stood there for a second. On the screen, my sister was laughing, her head thrown back, her new husband whispering something into her ear. The room inside looked brighter on camera than it had in real life. The staff member pulled out a chair for me. "Enjoy the evening," he said kindly, then walked away. The sound of the doors closing felt heavier than it should have. I sat down. From here, I could still hear the music faintly, like it was underwater. Forks clinking against plates. The rise and fall of voices that weren't meant for me. I looked down at the place sitting in front of me. No name card, just a blank fold of paper. Across the hall, through a narrow gap in the doors, I could see my mother standing near the head table. She was smiling for someone's camera again. She didn't look toward the hallway. She didn't look for me. And that was when it settled, not as anger, not as surprise, but as clarity. This wasn't an accident. This was placement, intentional, deliberate, a reminder of where I belonged. In the overflow, on the edge, watching my own family from a screen mounted to a wall. But as I sat there, staring at the muted image of my sister raising a glass to applause that I couldn't hear, I felt something shift inside me. Small, sharp, and very, very awake. I didn't mean to go back inside. At least, that's what I told myself. But the hallway felt smaller with every minute. The muted laughter from the screen became unbearable, like watching a party through thick glass while the world forgot you were still breathing. So I stood up. No announcement, No dramatic movement. Just quiet steps back toward the doors. When I pushed them open, the sound hit me first. Music swelling. Glasses clinking. Someone cheering loudly near the bar. The warmth wrapped around me again, but this time it felt suffocating. I walked toward the head table. No one stopped me. No one noticed. That was the pattern. My sister saw me first. Her smile didn't fade immediately. It flickered, adjusted, then sharpened. "You made it," she said lightly, loud enough for the women beside her to hear. I nodded. "Congratulations." Up close, I could see the details. Her lashes thick with mascara, the shimmer on her collarbone, the diamond at her throat catching every strand of light. She looked untouchable. Her husband stood beside her, one hand resting at the small of her back. Possessive, casual. He glanced at me briefly, polite but uninterested. "This is my sister," she said to him, like I was an accessory she had almost forgotten to mention. He offered a small smile. "Nice to finally meet you." Finally, as if I had been hiding. My mother stepped closer, her perfume heavy and floral. "You found your seat?" she asked, though her eyes already knew the answer. "Yes," I said evenly. "In the hallway," my sister added, tilting her head slightly. The same tilt from childhood, the same practiced innocence. A few of her friends laughed softly, not unkindly, but not kindly either. The kind of laugh people give when they don't understand the full story, but sense hierarchy. It was very full, my mother explained quickly to them. "You know how these things are." "Of course. How these things are." I held her gaze. "I do." My sister leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough to sound intimate. "You don't really like big crowds anyway," she said. "I thought you'd be more comfortable out there." Comfortable. The word scraped against something raw inside me. "I didn't realize you were planning my comfort." I replied softly. Her smile tightened. "Oh, don't start," she whispered. "Not tonight. This day isn't about you." There it was. Clear, clean, precise. It never was. A waiter approached with a tray of champagne. My sister took a glass and handed one to her husband. Then she hesitated before offering one to me. For a second, our fingers brushed. She leaned closer again, her voice silk over steel. "You should be grateful you're even here." The room around us kept moving, music rising, people clapping at something happening behind me. But in that small circle of light, everything felt still. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel smaller. I felt awake. I didn't drink the champagne. I held the glass between my fingers, watching the bubbles rise and disappear. Over and over again, small things reaching the surface. Then gone, like words I had swallowed for years. My sister turned away first, already pulled back into laughter and flashing cameras. Her husband leaned down to whisper something in her ear. She touched his chest lightly, smiling the way she always smiled when she had secured something valuable. My mother adjusted the train of her dress. No one asked me to stay. No one asked me to leave. I stepped back on my own. The music swelled again as the MC announced the first dance. Applause filled the room. Chairs scraped. People rushed closer to the center of the floor. I stayed where I was. From here, I could see everything without being seen. My sister rested her head against his shoulder as they moved slowly beneath the lights. He held her carefully, like something delicate but expensive. The age difference was clearer up close. His hands slightly heavier, his movements slower. Power wrapped in polish. People whispered as they watched. "She's so lucky. He adores her." Imagine marrying that kind of security. Security. I almost smiled. The word felt ironic, because security was never something my sister earned. It was something she collected, a gift from parents who never said no, from teachers who excused her, from men who mistook charm for innocence, from a family that rearranged itself around her comfort. I set the untouched champagne glass on a passing tray. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I expected anger, a rush of heat, a trembling. Instead, there was something else, a quiet alignment, like pieces sliding into place after years of being misarranged. She thought I was here to endure, to sit quietly in the hallway and absorb another reminder of where I stood. But she had forgotten something. I wasn't the child with scraped knees anymore. I wasn't the girl waiting beside my father's newspaper. And I wasn't the sister hoping for crumbs of attention. 3 months ago, when the invitation arrived, something else arrived with it, an opportunity. I hadn't planned for tonight to hurt, but I had prepared for it. Carefully, slowly, without noise. The MC's voice rose again, announcing the cake cutting. Laughter erupted as frosting smeared playfully across my sister's cheek. Cameras flashed brighter. My mother wiped at it tenderly, smiling like this was the happiest moment of her life. I watched from the edge, and I felt the weight of something resting inside my purse. Small, sealed, waiting. The hallway seat hadn't been an accident, and neither was my presence tonight. 3 months ago, when the cream envelope arrived, I almost didn't open it. It sat on my kitchen counter for a full day, gold lettering catching the afternoon light. My sister's name curved across the front like it had been practiced. Mine was smaller, lower, still invited, but never centered. I knew she was getting married before the card arrived. My mother had called me weeks earlier, her voice breathless with excitement. "He's a CEO," she had said immediately, like that was the only detail that mattered. Very successful, very generous. Generous. The word lingered. "What does he do?" I had asked. "Investments. Real estate. Big things. You wouldn't understand scale. You wouldn't understand." I had let that one pass too. But curiosity has a way of staying quiet until it becomes necessary. 2 weeks after that call, my sister showed up at my apartment unannounced. She rarely visited my space, said it felt too small. She walked around slowly, examining things. My bookshelf, my worn sofa, the framed certificate on my wall from a promotion I had worked years for. "You've done? Okay," she said gently. "Okay." She sat at my kitchen table and crossed her legs. There was a new ring on her finger, not the engagement ring, but something delicate, private. "I need a favor," she said. I didn't answer immediately. She leaned forward. "You're good with paperwork. Numbers. Details. I just need you to look over something." She slid a folder across the table. It wasn't wedding planning documents. It wasn't seating charts. It was a contract, a prenuptial agreement, thick, precise, and complicated. "I just want to make sure I'm protected," she said, tilting her head slightly. "You know how men with money can be." Protected. I skimmed through the pages. My eyes caught on clauses, asset separation, conditions, disclosure requirements. And then I saw it, a section outlining prior financial liabilities. Hidden debts must be disclosed before the marriage to avoid automatic nullification. I looked up at her. "You've declared everything?" I asked evenly. Her smile didn't change. "Of course." But her fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the table. There had always been whispers. Shopping sprees funded by credit cards she couldn't cover. Loans my parents quietly paid off. Money borrowed from friends that was never returned. Patterns of living beyond what she earned. I closed the folder slowly. "If there's anything missing," I said calmly, "it won't end well." She stood up too quickly. "You worry too much." She left without finishing her tea. That night, something felt wrong. Not morally, not emotionally, strategically. So I made a call, not to her fiancé, not to my mother, but to someone who understood contracts the way I did. Because if my sister was stepping into a marriage built on leverage and image, then someone needed to understand what would happen if the image cracked. And as I sat in the wedding hall now, watching her laugh beneath the chandeliers, I remembered the line I had highlighted in that contract. Failure to disclose prior obligations may void all protections. Void, a small word, with very large consequences. The gift table sat near the stage, crowded and glittering under soft gold light. Boxes stacked on boxes. Satin ribbons tied into perfect bows. Thick envelopes tucked between crystal bowls. A quiet display of wealth and approval. I walked toward it slowly. No one stopped me. No one questioned why I wasn't smiling. I placed my small envelope carefully between 2 oversized gift bags. one from a luxury brand, another embossed with a groom's company logo. Mine looked insignificant. Plain ivory. No bow. No shimmer. Just weight. I let my fingers rest on it for a second longer than necessary. Inside wasn't money. Wasn't a card filled with polite blessings. It was paper. Copies. Carefully printed. Neatly arranged. 3 months ago, after my sister left my apartment, I had made another call. This one required discretion. Financial records aren't impossible to trace when someone leaves enough footprints. Credit applications, refinancing attempts, a personal loan filed under an old address, a payment plan quietly defaulted. Patterns form when you know how to look. And what I found was simple. She hadn't disclosed everything. Not even close. Significant debt. Active. Unresolved. Hidden behind charm and distraction. The prenuptial agreement had been airtight if both parties were honest. If I had wrestled with it for weeks. I could have warned her fiancé directly. I could have confronted her again. I could have walked away entirely. But something inside me didn't want drama, didn't want shouting, didn't want spectacle. I wanted clarity. So instead, I mailed an anonymous copy of the relevant financial documents to his legal team 2 weeks ago. No return address. No explanation. Just facts. Let professionals do what professionals do. Tonight wasn't about revenge. It was about alignment. Truth placed quietly in the right hands. The music shifted again behind me as the MC announced speeches. My sister and her husband moved toward the center of the room, glasses raised. My mother wiped her eyes dramatically. Applause swelled. I stepped back on the gift table and blended toward the side of the room. The envelope I placed there wasn't the real reveal. That one was symbolic, a reminder. The real reveal had already been delivered. Processing, analyzed, verified. All that remained was timing. On the stage, my sister lifted her microphone. Her voice trembled slightly as she thanked everyone for believing in love, in destiny, in finding the right person at the right time. Her husband smiled, but something about his posture had changed. Subtle, stiffer. His phone vibrated once in his hand. He glanced down at the screen, and for the first time that evening, his smile didn't return immediately. He tried to hide it. That was the first thing I noticed. The way his jaw tightened just slightly. The way his thumb lingered on the screen a second too long before he slipped the phone back into his pocket. The room didn't notice. The room was busy clapping. My sister was still mid-sentence, her voice soft and emotional as she spoke about new beginnings and building something honest together. She reached for his hand without looking. He gave it to her, but his grip had changed. Not affectionate. Measured. I stayed near the back of the room. Still, unremarkable. The string lights above the stage cast warm shadows across their faces. The photographer crouched low, angling for something perfect. Guests dabbed at their eyes, smiling at the display of devotion. But I was watching him. His eyes had shifted from celebration to calculation. Another vibration. He didn't check it this time. He already knew. When he leaned toward her to whisper something, she laughed too quickly. The laugh of someone who doesn't hear what's actually being said, only assumes it's harmless. My mother moved closer to the stage, pride glowing in her posture. This was her masterpiece, her golden child, married into power, secured. The music swelled again as the speech ended. Applause thundered across the hall. Glasses clinked. Someone shouted for the couple to kiss. They did. Perfect angle. Perfect lighting. But his eyes remained open for a fraction longer than necessary. Scanning. Searching. I felt no rush of triumph. No heat of revenge. Only a quiet stillness spreading through my chest. I had not created anything tonight. I had only removed a filter. The truth was never loud. It simply waits. A few minutes later, I saw him step away from the stage. He moved toward the side exit near the bar, phone already in his hand now. His expression was no longer confused. It was focused. My sister didn't follow immediately. She was being pulled into photographs again. Hugged, praised, admired. She thought the night was still under control. I slipped toward the hallway doors again, not to escape, to observe. Through the narrow glass panel, I could see him speaking sharply to someone on the phone. His free hand pressed against his forehead, his shoulders rigid. The celebration inside continued, unaware, but something had shifted in the air. A fine crack beneath polished marble, invisible to most, unavoidable to him. I exhaled slowly. The storm doesn't announce itself when it begins. It gathers quietly, and then it arrives. When he returned to the hall, the music was louder, too loud. The DJ had shifted from classical strings to something modern and bright. Guests were on their feet now, laughter spilling freely. Champagne refilled before glasses emptied. From the outside, nothing had changed, but his walk was different, slower, deliberate. He didn't head straight back to my sister. He stopped near the head table first, leaned down, and said something to one of the men seated there, his attorney. I recognized him from the engagement dinner months ago. Quiet, observant, the kind of man who doesn't smile unless necessary. The attorney's expression sharpened. He stood immediately. They stepped aside together. My sister noticed then. I saw it in her eyes. The flicker, the brief misalignment between what she expected and what she saw. She excused herself from a group of bridesmaids and followed them toward the side of the room. My mother moved instinctively too, like she sensed something in the air. I stayed where I was. Near the edge, the trio formed a small circle near the bar. Voices low, controlled, but body language tells louder stories than words. My sister's hands moved first, dismissive, almost laughing. He didn't laugh. The attorney opened a folder on his tablet, turned the screen toward them. My sister leaned in. For a moment, she looked confused. Then her face went pale. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't theatrical. It was subtle, the kind of pale that drains warm from the lips. My mother reached out, touching her elbow, asking something. My sister shook her head quickly. Too quickly. The music continued. Guests clapped as someone announced a bouquet toss. On the dance floor, women gathered, heels digging into marble, ready to leap for something symbolic. Behind them, reality was unfolding in silence. I saw his posture change again. No longer rigid. Resolved. He said something firm. Short. My sister's eyes widened. She reached for his arm. He stepped back, just slightly, but enough. The attorney spoke next. Calm, precise. My sister's mouth opened, then closed. Opened again. There was no shouting, no scene, just a crack widening beneath polished marble. The bouquet flew through the air behind them. Laughter erupted as it landed in someone else's hands. A cheer, applause, celebration. And in the middle of it, I watched my sister realize this wasn't a minor misunderstanding. This was documentation, evidence, timing. Her gaze shifted across the room suddenly, searching, scanning, and for the first time that night, she was looking for me. Our eyes met across the room. It wasn't dramatic. No music stopped. No one gasped. But in that single line of sight, something unspoken passed between us. She knew. Not how, not when, but she knew. The attorney stepped closer to her, speaking in a tone so calm it almost felt cruel. He turned the tablet again, scrolling, page after page. Numbers, dates, signatures. My sister shook her head. Once, twice. Her lips moved quickly now, explaining, reframing, minimizing. I could almost hear the phrases. It's old. It was handled. It's not what it looks like. Her husband didn't interrupt her. He listened. That was the worst part. He wasn't reacting emotionally. He was evaluating. My mother stepped in between them, her voice rising slightly, defensive, protective. There must be a mistake, she said. But mistakes don't come with documentation. The attorney finally looked up. He said one sentence. I didn't hear it, but I recognized the weight of it. My sister's shoulders dropped. Not dramatically. Just enough. The music continued behind them. Guests unaware. The dance floor filling again. A server walked past the tense circle with a tray of desserts, pausing awkwardly before continuing on. Life does not stop for exposure. It simply keeps moving. My sister reached for her husband's hand again. This time he didn't take it. He stepped back fully. A clear line drawn. My mother turned sharply, scanning the room as if she could locate the source of the fracture and repair it with force of will alone. Her eyes found me. I didn't look away. There was no smile on my face, no satisfaction, just steadiness. The attorney spoke again, longer this time. Legal language, consequences, words like breach, non-disclosure, invalidation, the prenuptial agreement, designed to protect, now a mechanism of exposure. My sister's face flushed red after the pale, anger rising to replace fear. She pointed once, subtly, in my direction. Her husband followed the line of her finger. Our eyes met, and for the first time that evening, he truly saw me, not as background, not as an afterthought, but as presence. He held my gaze for a second longer than expected. Then he nodded, almost imperceptibly. Not gratitude, not alliance, just acknowledgement. The attorney closed the tablet. Decision made. My sister's wedding smile, so carefully practiced, began to fracture. Tiny cracks at the corners, invisible to most, but irreversible. And just as the DJ raised the volume again, the groom removed his ring. He'd make a scene. That was the strangest part. No shouting, no glass thrown, no dramatic exit that would give the guest something obvious to react to. He simply slid the ring off his finger. Slowly, deliberately, the diamond caught the chandelier light one last time before disappearing into his palm. My sister stared at his hand as if it had betrayed her. "This is a misunderstanding," she whispered. I could read it on her lips. He answered her calmly, too calmly. The attorney stood slightly behind him now, no longer explaining, only witnessing. My mother's voice rose next, not loud enough to stop the music, but sharp enough to cut. "You can't do this here," she said. But he already had. He turned toward the stage without another word and signaled for DJ to lower the volume. The music faded awkwardly. Conversations thinned. People looked around, confused but still smiling. He stepped up to the microphone my sister had used minutes earlier, the same microphone that had carried promises of honesty and destiny. Now it carried something else. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice even, "I apologize for interrupting the celebration." My sister rushed toward him, reaching for his arm. He gently moved out of reach. "There are matters that require immediate attention," he continued. "Certain disclosures that were not made prior to this marriage." A murmur rippled through the hall. My mother froze. My sister's face hardened. "Private matters," he clarified, "that affect the legality of this union." Legality. The word landed heavy. Someone near the front gasped quietly. The attorney stepped forward just enough to be visible. Confirmation without explanation. "I will not discuss details publicly," he said. "But due to breach of agreement, this marriage cannot proceed as intended." Cannot proceed. 3 words. Clean. Final. My sister's breathing became visible in the rise of her shoulders. "This is ridiculous," she snapped, forgetting the microphone was still live. Her voice echoed through the room. "You're overreacting." He didn't respond. He simply stepped down from the stage. Guests began whispering openly now. Phones lowered. Smiles fading. My mother grabbed my sister's hands, trying to steady her. But steadiness isn't something you can borrow. It has to be built. My sister's eyes scanned the room again. They found me. This time there was no confusion, only fury, and something else beneath it. Fear. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I didn't need to, because for the first time in our lives, the spotlight wasn't bending toward her. It was exposing her. The hall didn't empty all at once. It thinned, like air slowly leaving a room. Clusters of guests began drifting toward the exits in polite confusion. Conversations were hushed now, curious, careful. No one wanted to be the first to ask questions, but everyone wanted answers. The chandeliers still glowed warmly overhead. The flowers still smelled sweet. But the celebration had shifted into something fragile. My sister stood near the stage, frozen in place, her dress heavy around her like it no longer belonged to her. The diamond at her throat still caught the light, but now it looked sharp instead of brilliant. My mother spoke rapidly beside her, words spilling without landing anywhere solid. "Fix it," Call him. Explain it. Blame someone. That had always been the pattern. But this time there was no one to rearrange. No teacher to charm. No parent to smooth it over. No man eager to overlook. Just documentation. And consequence. The groom had already stepped outside with his attorney. I could see his silhouette through the glass doors, steady, composed, untouched by spectacle. He wasn't angry. He was finished. My sister's eyes found me again. She took a step toward me. Then another. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble. "You did this," she said under her breath when she reached me. I didn't flinch. I didn't create anything. I replied quietly. I just didn't hide it. Her face twisted, not into sadness, not into regret, but into something rawer. "How could you?" she whispered. The question lingered between us. How could I stop absorbing the silence? How could I stop shrinking? How could I let truth exist without cushioning it for a comfort? I looked at her, really looked at her. For years, I had wanted her approval, her softness, her acknowledgement. Tonight, I realized I didn't need any of it. I said simply. She stared at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time, not as background, not as competition, not as overflow seating, but as someone who had been watching, learning, waiting. My mother called her name from behind us, panic rising now as guests continued to leave. I stepped back. There was nothing more to say. Outside, the night air was cool and steady. The sounds of the city moved on without pause. Cars passed. Streetlights hummed. Life continued. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt aligned. Something inside me, tight for years, had finally released, not because she lost, but because I stopped losing myself. I walked toward my car slowly, heels softer against pavement than they had been against marble. The doors of the hall closed behind me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't standing at the edge of my family. I was stepping away from it. And as I drove into the quiet night, one thought stayed with me. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is let the truth speak without apology. Tell me, have you ever been placed in the overflow of someone else's life? And what did you do when you realized you didn't belong there anymore?